Hello and welcome to the podcast, Love, Life and Loss. Thank you so much for agreeing to sit with us today, Peter. So, as I do with everybody else, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody and let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, thank you for having me and inviting me on the show. So, obviously, my name is Peter Reeves. I am a senior product manager at the moment in a digital space. Uh, Trying to think what else I need to tell you.
Other bits do you do in your spare time? Because I know that you do other bits other than work as well.
Yeah. So, in my spare time, I enjoy cooking. So that's one of my passions. Soca music, which is also a passion. So music in general as well. If you ever see me on public transport, you'll probably see me nodding away to myself and tapping my foot. I also enjoy writing poetry. Haven't done it for a while, but used to do it quite a lot when I was younger. And yeah, I just like social media as well. A lot of people shy away from it and hate it, but I actually quite enjoy it. Different levels and different platforms for different things. So professional stuff on LinkedIn, and then just a bit more in-depth stuff on Facebook. And then you've obviously got the crazy nonsense that you just get on Insta, and platforms like that, Twitter or X as it's now known.
Yeah. I don't know much about that. I mean, it makes sense though, considering your work background as well. So you're here today to tell your story. So would you like to tell us your story from the beginning, whatever that looks to you?
Yeah. So usually I begin with like the events of the day, and more recently people have been asking me like about what happened before then, before the event. So I'll probably start from like the history of trying to conceive a child and have a child with my wife. So my wife Gina, we uh got married in Barbados in 2009. To get that right there. And we started, well, we didn't plan to start trying for babies, but she got pregnant a few years, probably about 5 years after we were married. And unfortunately, that baby didn't make it. So that baby was ectopic. And then from there on in our attempts, kept on not working out. So we had quite a few attempts, which included IVF as well, and didn't work out. And then we got pregnant in 2022 with Dante, and he went to 25 weeks, which is longer than usual. So because of our attempts that didn't succeed previously, we didn't really tell people every time Gina got pregnant. We just kind of left it between ourselves and wanted to wait until as long as possible before we started telling people, before we started planning for anything really, that people would know. So like baby showers and stuff like that, name reveals.
Yeah.
So with Dante, because he got past 21 weeks and he got past 22 weeks, we felt a bit more confident. Gina didn't know the sex of the baby, but because of her past, we had private screenings as well. And in one of those, they asked if we wanted to know what the sex of the baby was, and she didn't want to know, but I did. So they told me, but didn't tell her. So I knew it was a boy, and I was thinking of names all along, but trying to throw curveballs at her by throwing out random rubbish names for boys and also for girls, so she didn't know which one it was.
How did you manage that though? Not telling her.
Oh, it was for me. It was quite easy because
Okay.
I just wanted I wanted her to be surprised, and for the gender reveal, I had also set up. So we both enjoy soca, so I set up a soca artist to reveal the baby's gender for us in the kind of the theme of one of her tunes that were out at the time.
Oh,
Um,
lovely.
so it's a track called "Drink Water, Mind Your Business."
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I know the one.
yeah. So my idea was for her to put the die, like sing the song, and then put the die of of a boy, so it'd be blue water.
Oh,
And then she would know. So I set that up for her to happen. And also one of the private scans, the same one actually that we found out what gender the baby was, they took a recording of the heartbeat and put it into a teddy bear.
oh,
So we've got that you can just squeeze and you can listen to the heartbeat. And everything was going well. Started planning stuff like the baby shower. But throughout the pregnancy, Gina had had some problems where she was bleeding. It was just irregular bleeding. Sometimes it wasn't too heavy, and sometimes it was very heavy. So when it was very heavy, she would go to the hospital. They couldn't find anything, or they didn't know really what it was, but they said it is normal for women to bleed sometimes throughout pregnancies, and they couldn't see what was wrong in terms of something being wrong for them to fix it and for her to be fine. So she was always a bit worried about that in the back of her mind. And so was I. But I think I was, because we got to a stage where it had gotten past where every other baby had been, I was thinking this is the one. So it's kind of ignoring those things and just thinking it will be okay. It'll be fine. But unfortunately, on April 1st, 2022, Gina, in the morning, she had woken up and she said that she's got some pains in her stomach. And she went to the toilet and she came back, she was bleeding quite badly. And then she tried to go back to sleep, couldn't get back to sleep. The pain was too much. She said, I'm getting up and going to have a shower and go to the hospital. So I usually spend about 2 hours in the bathroom every morning. So for me, it was like I didn't even bother having a shower, which was crazy for me to do because I don't usually do that. But I thought I'd better go with her. So we called an Uber, and she had a shower, got ready because it's like a West Indian thing to just make sure that you're clean before you go to the hospital. Make sure you've got clean underwear and everything on. So she'd done that, got ready, and we were waiting for the Uber. The Uber came. And as the Uber came, I called the hospital to tell them that we were coming in because she was bleeding pretty heavily, and her contractions, like she said, that her contractions started as well. Because we were, this was our first time of getting this far. We hadn't really prepared, so we didn't know like what you're supposed to do. We didn't have a bag ready for her to take into hospital or anything like that. So she just knew that her contractions were happening. It was happening, and for some reason he was wanting to come out. So I called them and I told them that contractions coming. I had some an interesting conversation where they were more worried about COVID. And if we'd had a COVID test, then they were how she was and what was going on. Um, so she was 25 weeks.
25 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. And they continued to ask about the COVID test. And I said, are you expecting us to go back home? We're in that Uber right now. We're on our way to you. We're probably halfway there. Are you expecting us to go home and do a test before we actually come back to the hospital? And they said, well, that's what we prefer people to come in with a COVID test. But if you're on your way, you might as well come now. It's like, well, I'm not turning around.
Yeah.
And it's like almost 5 minutes before they asked me what her name was. It was just constant talk about COVID and also telling me the procedures. So we prefer 2 days notice before people come in. I was like, well, how would you give you 2 days notice?
What? Yeah, when somebody's in early labour.
Yeah. And it was pretty much like they didn't want us to come in, but I was trying to explain to them, we're not coming in because we want to come in. We're coming in because she's bleeding and also she's having contractions. And said, okay, when you get to the front desk, you just ask to come to, I can't remember the ward. So got there. There was because it was early in the morning. I think it was because it was early in the morning. The escalators weren't running. So we walked up the stairs. No one that was downstairs to meet us or anything. Walked up the stairs, got to the ward that we were supposed to be on, went inside, went to the receptionist and told the receptionist what was happening. And she gave her a urine bottle and said, can you give us a urine sample? and the nurse will see you. And can you fill in this form? So we sat down, and Gina was like visibly uncomfortable. She couldn't sit down, like just still. She was just moving all over the place. She was in a lot of pain. I think her contractions were like every. I think by that time it was like every 2 minutes.
Okay.
So she was pretty adamant he wants to come out, and she gets on saying he wants to come out. Also, she was saying it wants to come out, it wants to come out because she didn't know if it was a boy or girl. She was saying
Okay.
it wants to come out, it wants to come out. Um, and I kind of wanted to just reassure her, calm her down, and tell her to trust in like the professionals. They'll help us. But the nurse took ages to see us. Gina tried to go to the toilet. She couldn't produce anything. So she came back and just sat down. And the nurse came and got us and took us into a room. And she started asking Gina some questions, asked Gina to sit on the bed. And then she said that she's going to listen to the baby's heart. And she listened. She said, everything sounds fine. Sounds fine. There's nothing to worry about, but the doctor will see you anyway. And Gina was like, well, I've got like, it's just burning and something, it feels like I'm on fire inside and something's trying to get out. Are you sure he's fine? She's like, yes. I was like, are you sure it's fine? And she's saying, yes, it's fine. The doctor will see you anyway, just wait in the waiting area. And at the same time, the phone rang and then she answered the phone. And then she was being really flippant with the person on the other end. So similar to the way that the person I spoke to was, and then it clicked that it was the same person. And later on, we found out that it was because the overflow team hadn't kicked in yet. So it was coming directly into the nurses, any calls. And obviously they're trying to do their job, but then at the same time, they're having to field calls. So she was obviously frustrated and annoyed.
Okay.
So she told us to go out in the waiting area and give her a urine sample if possible. So we got Gina some water, and she couldn't drink. Not couldn't She could drink a little bit, but she couldn't drink much. But then she also just couldn't go to the toilet. She didn't feel like going to the toilet. She said, "Can you come with me?" So I went with her to the toilet, and she sat down for a while and just couldn't produce anything. And then all of a sudden, she stood up, and all of a sudden, this water. She's about to stand up on the toilet, and all of a sudden, this water just burst, and just loads of stuff just fell into the toilet. She was kind of standing there, hovering over the toilet, and she was just, I don't know what happened. Has something happened? Has the baby gone into the toilet? So at 25 weeks, I had no idea what size baby I was looking for or what I was looking for. So I was just looking in the toilet to see if there was anything in there that I could make out. And I was like, I don't think anything's in there. So she stepped away from the toilet and she was bleeding, like bleeding lots. So when you see horror movies and stuff, and you see something happens to someone and they're just bleeding, it was like that kind of blood all around her on the floor. So I rushed out to go to the reception and get a nurse. And I went to the receptionist. I said, we need a nurse now because my wife's waters are broken and she's bleeding all over the floor. She's in the toilet. The receptionist said, "Okay, I'll get you a nurse." So I went back, thinking that a nurse is going to come within like seconds.
Mm.
Standing there with Gina, she was just like panicking. She didn't know what to do. She's standing there with her trousers around her ankles because we didn't know like if she should pull them up or if she should sit down, if she should be standing up, what she should be doing. And 5 minutes passed and still no one had come. So I went back round and I went to the receptionist and said, "Is anyone coming?" Because she's standing there and she's like bleeding a lot and we need help. And she said, "No, yeah, someone's coming, someone's coming. I've just got to find out so someone's coming." So I'm like, "Okay, but can you get someone soon, please?" So I went back in again. Another 5 minutes passed and no one came. I went
Oh my
back out
gosh.
again, and then this time the receptionist came with me when I went back, because I was like, where is that? So is someone coming or not? Because she'd be standing there forever. And then went back with the receptionist, and she saw the blood. She saw everything that was on the floor. She saw what state Gina was in, and she rushed back. And then must have been about another 3 or 4 minutes later, then a nurse came round, um, came in, had a look, said, "Okay, can you pull up your trousers and follow me?" And Gina pulled up her trousers and followed her, so walked with her around, and we walked down to this other area where it looked like there was other women giving birth in cubicles, and it was pretty dimly lit. And they asked Gina to get onto a bed or get changed into a gown, and again, the questions about COVID started happening. Have you had a COVID test? Have you had COVID in the last 20 days or whatever? And just asking her loads of questions about COVID. Do you mind if we give you a COVID test? So they gave her a COVID test there and then. And again, they were more worried about that than they were what was happening to her. And she was still bleeding. She got on the bed while she had a gown on. And then so a doctor, it turned out to be a junior doctor, like a junior midwife, and another midwife, I think it was, came in and had a look at her. So the junior doctor was looking inside Gina, and she was obviously just on the bed, just trying not to move around, but just saying something wants to come out of me, and it's just burning, it's hot. And the way I knew that it was a junior doctor is because he couldn't really see anything, and had one of those little pen torches. And I know my mum used to be a nurse, so I know that they used to use those pen torches. But the room was so dimly lit that you just couldn't see anything really, and he couldn't see anything. He said himself, I can't really see to the nurse and the midwife." And they said they couldn't really see, and they were like, "Oh, but what's that?" And they didn't really know. So he said, "Oh, okay. So we think the baby's coming, but it's not time. We'll probably need to try and make sure that we give you something to help the baby before it does come, because it's probably going to come early. And I just need to speak to my boss." So when he said my boss, I kind of thought, well, I know from being around my mum and going to a workplace and stuff, no one ever refers in a medical profession. No one ever refers to anyone as their boss. So I knew that he must be junior, and that kind of worried me a little bit. But I think in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I don't want to be the angry black man who's like demanding, and the reason why the staff couldn't do their jobs, because this guy was just shouting at us and demanding, and he was just getting in the way. So I didn't want to be that person. I wanted to be the person that helps them as much as they can, because they need to help my wife. So they they disappeared. He actually went out for a second and spoke to what looked like his boss. So I could see through the curtain, and his boss looked quite laid back, but I think he looked quite stressed and quite fed up. And he was like, I think the junior doctor said, "Do you want to have a look?" And he said, "What for?" It kind of like, the baby's coming. Like, why would you want me to have a look? You just need to get it out, kind of thing. It was like a dismissive, like,
oh my God.
like a, why are you even asking me? Just do what you need to do, kind of, what for. So then one of the nurses who were in the room, she pushes this wheelchair just outside the cubicle that we're in, and Gina says to me, "Do you think that's for me?" I was like, "Nah, this bed's got wheels. The state that you're in, I'm pretty sure they're just going to wheel you around if they need to wheel you anywhere." And after about 2 minutes, a voice from outside said, "Can you get in the wheelchair, please?" And I was like, "Oh, you want her to get in the wheelchair?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh, okay, sorry, that's my fault, because I thought you were just going to wheel her around on the bed. I didn't think you wanted to get her in the wheelchair." So then I helped Gina out of the wheelchair, and it was almost the nurse just stood outside. So it was almost like, even though they'd taken a COVID test and they by now knew that she didn't have COVID, it was almost like they were still scared that she might have COVID. So they didn't want to come in and treat her.
Oh my gosh. And I'm just sitting and listening to you. Like, I think she's in labor. Her waters have broken. She's having contractions. She's bleeding. Yeah, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional, but I know that she's in labor.
Yeah. So so I helped Gina into the wheelchair, and then grabbed up her stuff because they started wheeling her around, and then I'd forgotten her shoes. So one of the nurses shouted to me, um, "Oh!" and lifted up her shoes and waved them. So I had to go back and get her shoes. Then by that time, I kind of lost them. She'd gone somewhere, and then I walked around and found them. And then they'd taken her to another room. And this room was just a big bed. No one else in the room. There was like a resuscitation area and like lots of drawers and stuff. It's quite spacious. And yeah, so the nurses got Gina on the bed and they were trying to give her drugs and she just wasn't interested. Trying to give her gas and she wasn't interested at all. So they ended up just giving it to me to hold for her in case she did want it. And then they also gave her this injection, which they said was for the baby to help the baby's lungs. And we found out later that this only works like 48, if you give it 48 hours before, to help the baby's lungs to actually start functioning. But they gave it to her anyway. And then they left the room, and then another person came in and he introduced himself as the person who's going to be looking after the resuscitation if needed, and his team will be in this corner. And he went over there, and then his team came in and joined in. And then we were waiting around for a while, and then these two doctors who you could tell were a bit more experienced because they're a little bit older than the guy that we saw earlier. They were in green, and also they just looked like they knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And they walked over to the bed, and the lady hung back a little bit, but the gentleman came up to the bed and introduced himself, and he looked at Gina, or he asked, "Can I have a look, please?" Because Gina was like doubled over in pain at this point, and she couldn't really open her legs or anything, so kind of had to put her onto her back and then kind of push her legs open because she was in so much pain she couldn't do anything. All she kept on saying was that it's something's burning and wants to come out. And then he kind of looked inside, and the lady was looking from afar, and he couldn't really. He said he couldn't really see what was happening. And the lady from afar said, "Yeah, but what's that?" And then he looked and he did something. I'm pretty sure he did something with like his torch pen, and then Dante flew out. And
Sorry, say that again. Sorry.
he kind of prodded something and inside Gina, and then Dante, the baby, flew out onto the bed.
Oh my gosh.
At that point, he shouted prolapse cord, and he kept on shouting prolapse cord. They clamped the cord, cut it, took the baby over to the resuscitation table, and started trying to resuscitate him. At that point, they then said to Gina, "Do you want to know what the sex is?" And she didn't know. So, they said, "Do you want to know? Do you know what the sex is?" And Gina said, "No." But he does. And then they said, "Oh, do you want to know?" And I told her it was a boy. And um, after about, I think it's about 10 minutes. No, I think it's there. Sorry, it's about 9 minutes. After 9 minutes of trying to resuscitate him, one of the doctors came over and said that we've been trying, but he hasn't responded. Would you like us to continue trying? So we both said, yes, please. And they continued. And then after 30 minutes, they came over again and said that we're still trying, but nothing's happened so far. Can't get his heart to beat and his lungs working. And if it, like, if we continue trying, there is now the serious possibility of like more damage, and
Mm.
because he hasn't been breathing, so damage to brain, etc. Blah blah blah. Would you like us to continue or not? And kind of we looked at each other and just thought, no, like it's not happened now, so let's just let him go. So yeah, he rose and went back to sleep on the same day. Um, and after that, it was all kind of like a blur, but it kind of changes. So thinking about it in my memory, when we went into the room, it was quite light and it was big. And then when I think back to after the event, it feels like it was small. It was a small room, and it just feels like dark and grey. Time had passed, but it just kind of changes in your mind. Like I think when you go in, there's a little bit of optimism, and then when that changes, everything changes, the mood changes. Um, I don't think it really hit us to begin with. People started coming in, so there was a nurse there who was crying. She was crying, and left. And I think what we later found was that the reason that everything was so rubbish, to be blunt, from the hospital was because at that point in the day, which was early morning, they were having a change of shift.
Mm.
So some were coming, some were leaving. The reason why we didn't get seen by a doctor quicker was because that the doctor, from what we found out later, the two senior doctors, or no, sorry, one of the senior doctors that was meant to come and see Gina earlier had then got called away for a more serious case, I think they said. So then we had to wait for other doctors to come, and that's probably why we had the junior doctor to begin with rather than the senior doctor. And then yeah, so we had people coming in and the bereavement people coming in and just asking us questions that at that point you're just not ready for because it hasn't sunk in.
Mm.
But Gina did know, so they asked if we wanted. They asked us if we wanted something. I can't remember what it was, but then Gina said, "Have you got a priest here? Because I would like just some words said."
Mm.
Um, and they did. They had a chaplain, and that person was black. It's a black lady who came, and she said some stuff. Not very religious. So I wasn't really listening. And at that point, I wasn't really taking anything in.
Yeah.
Um, uh, so she said some stuff and helped him pass over in her way. And then they asked us, did we want imprints taken of the hands and the feet and hair taken, so we could keep that. Um, and we said yes. I think at the time we were thinking like, what is this all? What is this for? But later on afterwards, you realise that actually, if we'd said no, we'd probably be kicking ourselves right now, and it would hurt even more. And even though you don't like, so we've got the stuff downstairs, and we've put it in a little area where it's just kind of his area. Even though we've got it there, you don't look at it, but you just know it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's funny, you know.
I think it's just knowing that it's there if you need it, rather than thinking, I wish I'd had that.
Yeah.
Um, and no one well, they kind of did explain that to us. I think they did say to us, we're offering you this stuff now. I know it's not the right, that you're not in the right mental state to think about this now, but our advice would be that you take it, you do it, and then you can choose whether you want to keep it or not, rather than don't do it.
It's true. I must admit, it's funny you should say that because on Friday I opened my box. So, you get the box from Sands. I don't know if you did, but I did. And I actually opened my box for the first time in I can't even remember. And yeah, and opened it and we took some photos. We got his hands and footprints out and his little hat and things and took some photos. But I don't think I've looked at those since the same year he passed, to be honest. It's been 4 years now. So yeah, they've been in the box for at least 3 years.
Wow. Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Just having it there, but yeah, at the time you don't know why, but then it becomes clear, like you said, like 4 years later, it becomes clear why you needed it.
Yeah, it's I think from when I'm thinking about it, is someone said to me, like, can you bring some like memorabilias or anything personal for your son. And I think when they're so young, you don't have any, do you? You really don't have hardly anything. So it's these little things that we have then become so important because these are our memories of everybody else. You have your photo albums, you've got your bits and pieces, just tangible things, haven't you? Whereas when you lose a baby, there's really hardly anything tangible that you get to keep.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of something that one of my wife's uncles said. And like we're in the car together. It was just me and him, and he was saying, um, I don't like, obviously I don't know what to say, and I guess there's nothing really to say. And he said, probably the reason why I can't like feel it as much as you and Gina is because I didn't know him. Like I because I didn't get to like I didn't have a bond with him. And when you think about it, yeah, he didn't because it was just me and Gina who had this bond um with the baby, but everyone else didn't really have that. And
Yeah.
they had just had hope that they would see him and he would become their grandchild, their niece, their nephew or whatever, but they didn't know like they didn't know him.
Mm,
Um So yeah, so you're the only person who knows him, and then those little pieces, those little bits, you kind of treasure them.
yeah.
So we got all of those bits done, and then they asked us if we wanted to. So they took him and cleaned him, brought him back in what was like a mini fridge, and I could see that he was like he just looks exactly like me. It's like it was strange and nice at the same time, but then nice and disappointing.
Yeah.
Um, because it was just disappointing because he did look like me. I was thinking that would have been a mini me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so the ice box was weird as well because then they asked us if we wanted to take him home. I was just thinking that's a bit kind of weird. I don't really. What am I going to do with him? I'm not going to stick him in the fridge. Or the freezer or something. So what do you expect me to do with him? Why am I going to take him home?
Sorry, I know we shouldn't laugh at things, but I think it's important to laugh at things like this as well.
Yeah, because you're just thinking the practicality of it and like,
Yeah.
actually, why would I want to do that? And Gina as well, she was like, for her like, my mindset was like practicality. Like, why would I do that? And then Gina's mind, it was more of the spiritual side. So she said he was alive when he was in the home and he died here. So I don't want to take my son back to a place where he was alive. I want him to stay here because he's kind of like there's no point in taking a lost soul back to the home.
Yeah, I could understand that. It doesn't want to taint it.
Yeah. So we said no to that and left him there. And during that period as well, so I went out and so immediately after it happened, I was there with Gina. She called her sister and told her sister. She also called her friend, like who was her maid of honor, and she like immediately said, "I'm coming down. Like I'll see you soon."
Mm.
And she's in Milton Keynes, so she made her way down from Milton Keynes. I said to Gina that I'll go and get her some stuff because we didn't have anything, so she didn't have a change of clothes. She wanted to have a shower or have some kind of wash. So I said, I'll go and get you some stuff as well. So I called my friend, who was my best man as well, and he had just moved into the area. So called him, and luckily he wasn't at work, and told him what happened. And he said, I'll come around now. I'll come pick you up in the hospital and then do whatever you need to do. So he came and got me. As I left the hospital, I called my mum and told my mum what happened. And like she was, like, I was kind of trying to tell her, and then I was crying all the time.
Mm.
And I think she kind of guessed, and then I finally managed to get it out. And she was distraught as well. And my sister was there, and she took the phone. And like they were both trying to comfort me, and I said, "Yeah, Ben's on his way." So that's my best man. He's on his way now. He's going to take me. We're going to go and get some stuff for Gina. And they're in Bedford. So for them, and my dad's got dementia, so they can't really leave him. Couldn't really bring him along either. So I fully understood that, but I knew that they were really happy that Ben was there to
Yeah.
support me, and they knew that they could trust in Ben to look after me. So we've been friends since we were at secondary school. So,
Mm.
so we've been friends for ages. That shows my age. We've been friends for ages, years. Um, so yeah, he came. We came back to the house. We were getting the house redecorated as well, like in preparation for Dante. We were doing this room for his room, and start just redecorating the whole house. So we had some people, some workmen here. And I got back, and because we'd left so early, we'd given them keys as well, so they could let themselves in and do the job at any time. But we weren't around, and because we left so early, we obviously didn't see them. But when we got back, kind of just thought I was going to tell them, and just that was probably the first person that I told, apart from Ben, the first person that I actually told what happened, and he didn't know. Like, I just think he just didn't know what to do, what to say,
Yeah.
and yeah, he said, oh, do you want us to leave? And I said, no, like carry on, do whatever, and
Job done, why not?
yeah, and I just we went upstairs and got some stuff together for Gina, and then couldn't like was looking for something that I thought that would be comfortable for her to wear, and I couldn't find anything. And I thought, oh, let's go to somewhere and pick something up. So we ended up going to one of those Asda superstores, and went upstairs. Not Asda, sorry, Tesco superstores. And went upstairs to the clothing and electronics bit and just found a tracksuit for her and got the tracksuit, bought the tracksuit, and then went back to her. And then she was just after she'd had a shower, so her maid of honor Laura had got there, and that we took her into the shower. Ben waited outside and downstairs. We took her into the shower, washed her. She just wanted to leave straight away. She just didn't want to be in hospital at all. And so when the nurse finally came around and discharged her, saw her and discharged her, she was like, "Can we go?" So Ben dropped us home, stayed with us for a bit. So he stayed with me for a bit, and Laura was with Gina. Um, and then after that, Laura's husband and children came down. So that happened on the Monday, and they came down. Like I think the next day they came down, and it's like I don't know if it's a West Indian thing or what. They just basically started doing everything for us. Like the house was a mess because we had workmen who had just finished, so they cleaned the house. They cooked for us. Um, just everything they just did for us, and it was nice to have that support. Uh,
Yeah, good.
Gina's Gina's mum and dad were due to come in on flying in because they were in America, so they were due to fly in on the weekend. So they didn't change their flights because they were going to come there, and they knew that Laura was there and Ben was there if we needed. And then yeah, then it's just that's kind of the story of how it all happens, and then dealing with it afterwards is another story in itself, I think.
I'm so sorry. I really am so sorry. And thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Oh, you're
I'm
welcome.
just thinking, I'm listening to you and you having to sit there and watch your wife go through all of this. What was that like for you? What was that? How did you feel in that moment? What was your thought process? Because you're a bystander at that moment, at that time, aren't you? So it must have been so hard.
Yeah, I think that's a difficult thing. And the other thing, there's like a joke that men kind of make when women say that that it's that time of the month for them, and they get a bit emotional maybe, and they're a little bit irrational sometimes, and um, obviously we don't feel the pain that you go through and stuff for that time of month, but we're there with you,
Mm.
and like mentally we do have to deal with it with you because we're having to be with you. Um, and it was a bit like that kind of situation. Like, obviously, I didn't feel the physical pain that she felt, but it was a child that we had together, or that we were going to have together, and kind of that loss. I felt that, and then seeing her as well, I felt that like and seeing what had happened to her, and then start beating myself up as well a little bit because I thought that I was trying to do the right thing, but I'm not saying, well, like why are you a junior doctor seeing my wife with her kind of history? And getting angry and demanding more. I tried not to do any of that. I tried to just let the professionals do what they need to do. And maybe I shouldn't have. I was thinking maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have been the angry black man. Maybe things would have been different. And you never know. But at that time, straight after it, you're just thinking, what could I've done differently?
Yeah. Yeah, and you definitely won't be the only person thinking that. And we all do, don't we? We all put our trust in the doctors, and they're the professionals, so we let them take the lead. It's only once things like this happen that, we're less inclined to do that in the future. But otherwise, we would. I did the same. I did the same. And I hope you know now. I hope you don't beat yourself up still about it, because I always tell people this. You can only do you can only do your best at the time with the knowledge that you have at that time. Hindsight is a beautiful thing, but that's exactly what it is. We cannot be beating ourselves up by having the knowledge that we have now that we didn't have then.
Yeah, yeah, it's very true. So yeah, I try not to beat myself up, but there's always that part of you that just thinks, what if it was different, and there'd be a different outcome right now, and you always think that. So when other people's children are around, you think, well, Dante would have been two now, or
Yeah.
Dante, it would have been nice. Even just silly things like. I think it was yesterday. I was sitting down watching TV, and I was just thinking it would be nice if I just had Dante here sitting with me watching TV or doing whatever. Just yeah, it would be nice. And just
Yeah.
have those moments. And what if we didn't listen to the doctors, or what if we had got in earlier? But yeah, that's gone now. I think after that, kind of I kicked into just get it done mode. So I messaged my manager, um, and let them know what happened. And he basically messaged back and just said, whatever you need, here for you. Do not worry. Don't rush back. Just when you're ready, let me know what's going on. So it was really nice of him. Um, and I can't remember if I called Gina's workplace or she did. I think I might have. But yeah, just letting people know what happened. And then like the thing that kind of made it all, or for me, made me kind of snap out any grieving was a call from the council to say you need to come and register the birth and the death of your child. It's like, well, it's only been about 3 or 4 days, and
Yeah.
they're asking us to do this already. And then realizing, okay, we'll try and get down and do it. And then we had to arrange an appointment. So we went down, we did it. Well, we went down. It was still like really sore. Like Regina was still really upset, and obviously I was upset. But then I think at this point now, when it's you need to do this and you need to do that, I'd kind of changed to actually we need to get this stuff done. And went and sat down, and they gave us the birth certificate, signed that, and then they gave us a death certificate. And I was looking at it, and I was like, "What does that mean?" And then Googled up something that I'd written, and it basically meant that one of the things was premature. One of the reasons the death was because it was premature. Second reason was something I can't remember, but it basically meant tiny lungs. So I said, "Well, don't really agree with that." And Gina said, "Yeah, no, I don't. That's not what it was." And we said to the magistrate, the lady there, and she said to her, "We don't really agree with what's on here." She said, "If you don't agree with it, don't sign it. I'll tell the hospital that you don't agree." And she said, "Did they not tell you?" And we went, "No, they didn't tell us at the time, and they didn't tell us afterwards what would happen." So she's like, "Okay, yeah, well, I'll get on to them." and tell them you're not signing it. And yeah, they'll probably contact you, and you can discuss like what you want to do next. Because it sounds like you don't agree, and you might want to follow that through with an autopsy or something, um, just to find out. But yeah, don't sign it, and we can do it another time.
Hmm. Did they not offer? Did they not ring you to ask you if you wanted them to do an investigation? In fact, I thought I thought legally, if a baby's born prematurely, they might have to look into it, or they have to at least ask you.
No.
No.
So they provided us with so my gut feeling is that they know that they messed up. And they provided because um a lot of people that I've spoken to don't have mid what do you call it? What was she called again? Bereavement nurse who basically just comes and sees you all the time. A lot of people didn't have that. They didn't have one, or they had to ask for one, but we were given one straight away.
Hmm.
And she was amazing. Louise was
I
her
thought that
name.
was really good when you said my hospital didn't even have one in post. So
And yeah, so Louise, she came round and she spoke to us, and she was transparent. Like she just told us exactly what was going on, and we'd seen her before we went to register. So when we came back, Gina got in contact with her and just said, "Look, we didn't sign a register because we don't agree with it." And she said, oh, "Okay, they didn't tell you then." And she said, "Let me look into it." And then she said, "Yeah, like I'll set up a meeting so you can have a meeting with the doctor, and discuss like because they want to know why you want the autopsy, and discuss that with them, and then they can give the go ahead. But I've also told the coroner that you're asking for an autopsy, and they just need the doctor to confirm that as well." So then I had a phone call, and this is the ironic part. So I had a phone call from not the doctor who was in the room who shouted out prolapse board, but from a different doctor who told me that the doctor who was in the room was not available because he had COVID. So all that fuss you made about Gina
yeah,
potentially having COVID, and now you're telling me that this doctor probably had COVID while he was in the room with her.
I'm just thinking the same thing.
And so he had COVID, so he couldn't call me. So this other doctor was calling. So I said, "Okay, it's fine. Do you mind if I record this conversation?" He said, "Well, we don't usually have conversations recorded." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm asking you, do you mind? Because I'm going to record it." And he said, "Well, we don't normally, but if you want to record it, you can record it." And I said, "Okay, so you're saying that you're okay with me recording it?" And he said, "You can record it." So I said, "Okay, I'm recording." So I recorded the conversation. And he, the first thing he asked me is, are you a healthcare professional?" And I said, "No." So my mum's a nurse, so I've grown up around some terminology and stuff, but no, I'm not a healthcare professional. He said, "Okay, so why do you want the autopsy done?"
What? I'm sorry. What?
So I said to him that well, we went to sign the death certificate, and it had something about he had tiny lungs. And he said, "Yeah, like he was premature and he had tiny lungs, and that was the cause of his death." And I said, "No, it wasn't, because when he came out, the doctor, who's not available right now, shouted out to the room that it was prolapse cord, and that's probably what killed him." "Oh, but you don't know that. We can't say that." And I said, "Yeah, but you can't say that he had tiny lungs because you cannot see inside him."
Yeah.
And I said he was fully formed when he came out, and when I saw him, he was fully formed. So I don't believe that he had tiny lungs. Yes, he had tiny lungs because he was premature, like there was probably small lungs, but he was fully formed. So I don't think that you could tell me that his lungs were the cause of his death over prolapse cord, which
Hmm.
you was telling me. He said, "Okay, well, um, you can have we can get the autopsy arranged for you, but I'm just saying that I think that you'll probably find it was the same. It was tiny lungs." I was like, "Well, let's do the autopsy and find that out." Coroner came back with the report and agreed he's fully formed. There was no issues with any of his organs or anything. Um, but also said that the prolapse board was probably a cause, however, or it was a contributing cause. However, we can't be certain how long the cord was around his neck and trapping him. So you can't put it down to just the cord, but it was probably contributing.
But what could be the other contributing factors then? The
His
being premature labour.
yeah.
But okay, okay.
So,
I'm not an expert, so it's very difficult for me. I'm very opinionated,
yeah.
but I'm not an expert. And like I don't want to upset anybody, but I mean, there's lots of research out there that babies at 22 weeks now, research came out this year, babies at 22 weeks have a 60% chance of survival if they're given active care when they're born. So at 25 weeks, your son would have had a lot higher chance of survival. I think my brother, he was about 25 weeks or 26 weeks when he was born, 33 years ago, and he's a big strapping man now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard because when I went into labour, that was my hope. My brother, I was like, 'cause my son was a little bit younger, smaller than yours. I was, according to the doctors, 22 weeks and 5 days. Um, so my little brother was my hope that he was 3 months premature and he's still here now today. So, there is chance, but it all depends on the hospital, on whether they're equipped to deal with premature babies, what's going on at the time. COVID, that time seems like a harrowing time for so many people. And if they're wasting time, 5, 10 minutes asking you about whether you've been tested or not to check on the baby. Oh dear. So, did you? So, did you leave it at that, or is it? I mean, you don't want to talk about. You don't want to talk about. I don't want to push
Yeah,
too
no.
much.
So disagreed with what he said. Obviously, then the results came back and showed that yeah, we were right to disagree and get the autopsy done. And so Louise, who was yeah, like I said, completely transparent, she was telling us everything that was happening. Um, so she mentioned that they'd had a what was it called? Critical incident investigation, and a report has been put together. And they did do stuff wrong. They didn't get everything right. So she was admitting that not everything was done the way that it should have been done. And uh, there'll be they'll invite us in for a conversation with the lead obstetricianist. I think that's what they're called. So we went in for this conversation, and basically, like I knew that they were going to try and say that they didn't do anything wrong, but the report that they produced had about, I think it was 8 points in the report, which it said that they admitted that they needed to do better on, and they were putting measures in to change. So we had a whole conversation around what had happened and reasons why. So a lot of the things that we understand now is because we had this conversation, reasons why doctors weren't available or someone senior wasn't available to see Gina at the time. So they've been called all the way to another emergency. And we got to a point where the lead obstetricianist said, well, I'm really sorry to say this, but I really do feel that if we could do it, if everything happened again, the same outcome would happen. And there's nothing that we could have done differently that would change that outcome. And I said, well, you've got this report where you've listed 8 points that you say that you could have done better on. Let's say that those 8 points are worth 5% each, because medicine is a science and maths is a science, and you use maths in medicine. So let's put 5% against each of these points that you said that you could do better on. That's a 40% increase in the chance of him surviving. And he's like, oh, well, I still think we couldn't, like, it wouldn't have changed the outcome. I said, yeah, but you've just told me in this report that you could do stuff better. You've mentioned stuff like how the receptionists are now trained, or you're training them to be able to raise the alarm better if it's needed. She was standing there for 20 minutes before a nurse came and saw her. So that's definitely 5% increase in the potential of my son living. If I was to put my hands around your neck for 2 seconds, you're not going to die, are you? If I put my hands around your neck for 20 minutes, you're probably going to die. So if you apply that to prolapse chords, and he was saying, we don't know how long how long he was in that situation for. And I said, yeah, but you have to work on probabilities because it's a science. So on probabilities, if you managed to see him quicker and got him out quicker, he probably would have survived.
He
And
was fine when you got there, wasn't he? They listened to his heartbeat.
yeah, he was fine. I think he just wanted to come out, but obviously, for some reason, they weren't taking any notice of us, or of Gina, because she was saying something wants to come out of me, and she was being quite like not loud. She was just being like assertive.
A mother in labour is
Yeah,
what. Yeah.
she's being assertive. Yeah, mother in labour. I know something's wrong. You need to do something about it.
Yeah.
Kind of attitude. Whereas I was the opposite. I'm like, yeah, they're the professionals. Let them do what they need to do, kind of thing. But yeah, so we went back and forth, me and this guy, and there's this. I keep on telling everyone about this book because it's a must read and or listen to. It's called Black Box Thinking, and it's yeah, it does some comparisons, and it's about about the approach to failure. And one of the major comparisons it makes in the book is a comparison between the aviation world and healthcare world. And it cites like in the 70s, like planes were falling out of the sky. And this was costing the aviation world loads of money because they had to pay compensation. Because you're talking about planes with like hundreds of people on it. If it goes down, you have to pay out compensation. That's like 100 million every time a plane goes down. So they needed to make sure that planes stopped falling out of the sky and they stopped having to spend so much money. So they introduced a black box, and the black box meant that they could now understand why planes were falling out of the sky and learn from many planes that did crash. So what was the problem? Let's make sure and fix that on the planes. So doing that across the board and fixing that across the board meant that you've got a much safer aviation world now, where I think it's the last major one was a Malaysian airliner that fell out of the sky, which I think about 200 people died in. But it's now, I think they say that it's now kind of like safer than just walking out of your house to just fly in a plane now. There's so many planes.
I've heard that I've heard you're more likely to get struck by lightning twice than you are to die in a plane crash or anything like that.
Yeah, that's because they've made planes so safe using the black box. And the idea is that you learn from your failures. Whereas in the healthcare system, they don't learn from their failures. They try to cover up their failures. They try to say that their failures are not their failures, and it's actually something else that happened, and it wasn't them. As long as we keep on doing that in a healthcare service, it means you will never learn, and people will never know what's really going on, what really was the problem, how can we really make the healthcare system perfect and reduce the loss of life. And that kind of put listening to that. So I was listening to that before this all happened, and then it's clicked like the kind of that's exactly what is needed. And also that what is needed when we started speaking to solicitors, a lot of them turned us down because they said, well, look, you're taking on the NHS. It's a big organization. So we're trying to take on the NHS. And for your loss, the most you're probably likely to win, or the most that you can win in law is £20,000. And I was like, £20,000. Let's think about the lifespan of a human being. Like, say you only live up to 70 or something, and the amount of time that you spend working. So let's say you spend at least 50 years working, and let's say that you earn a low salary to begin with, but then you work your way up. At the end of your life, of most people's lives, you will probably, well, no, actually, you will definitely earn over £1 million. But you just don't see it all in one go because it's coming in, going out, coming in, going out. So your contribution as a human being is at least £1 million, just your lifetime to the economy, the whole worldwide economy, because you might travel and you might spend. So you're of value to the earth, not of just £20,000. So your life can't be just worth £20,000. Your life should be at least 1 million. And if hospitals or the NHS or any healthcare system is losing, like the airlines were, losing at least £1 million per person that is lost through negligence, you're going to stop it. You're going to then introduce a black box. You're then going to say, we have to learn because we can't afford to lose this amount of money. And whilst you're only losing £20,000, you're probably going to say, let them take it to court. We get to a point where we're probably going to realize that we're going to lose. Then we'll pay them £20,000 because what we could do is just make one of the cleaners redundant. That's £20,000 right back, right there. We've made that back. It's 1 million. That's a lot. You can't just make one person redundant. That's a lot of redundancies. So you need to stop the leak. But we don't do that. And that's kind of that's what we want to fight for right now. That's what we're trying to do. We did find lawyers who are willing to take on the case, and willing to take on that fight. Obviously, I don't think so. I think legally £20,000 is the thing that is like the point. But I think we just want to make a point of it that that's not enough. Win, lose, draw, whatever. Just going to make a point that that's not enough. That people's lives are worth more than that.
Yeah. And I think it is different now because is it last year? Somebody in Nottingham, I think it's from Nottingham Hospital, because there's a big inquiry there, wasn't there? Excuse me. I think a family was awarded like £100,000, the most anybody has ever been awarded in compensation, but they lost their babies. But it was just to a family, but this was off the back of a huge public inquiry. So like listening to you, just from my own personal experience and a little bit of research that I've done, like the doctors, they're gonna say, yeah, we've got learning areas to learn from, but they're not gonna admit it because it's easy for them to say they can't determine that was the cause of death because that's what the law says, isn't it? That's why. So for me, no solicitors would take my case because of the weeks of gestation. Basically, they couldn't guarantee that had they done something differently, that he still would have survived. And that, unfortunately, that's what the law is, and which is I find so frustrating because why is it any different for a baby? Because if it was a grown adult and they had a 1% chance of survival, the doctors would take that 1% and run with it, wouldn't they? If I was in hospital now and they knew that if I was going to die, if they could try this and there's literally a 5% chance that I may survive if they try this, they would try it and they wouldn't think anything of it. In fact, they would be very reluctant not to try it. But yeah, when it's a baby, oh, well, there's only a 40% chance of survival, so we're not going to bother. We won't try. We won't try. What the? And that baffles me. Just at what point do we put a value on life? That's what we're doing, isn't it? And it really frustrates me. And it's not even just about the money. When you go in trying to take people to court, is it? I remember when I was thinking about it and I felt really uncomfortable because I was like, I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it because I want them to know they've done wrong. I want them to admit they've done wrong and I want them to do better. And it was one of my friends said to me, people don't learn until they have to pay. So it's exactly what you're saying right now. People don't learn unless they have to pay. And that's when they stand up and think, okay, well, maybe we need to do something different next time, because it can't keep, like you said, can't keep costing us. Not because we want to save lives, we don't want to keep hurting people. We want to do better. It's just we don't want to keep spending out this money. So actually, yeah, the way you've said that, the way you've put that is actually really good and really elegant. Actually, that what we contribute financially to the world as a human being to what compensation that you can get, it just does not tally up. But yeah, if it was a private organisation, they'd have to pay a lot more money.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what we're saying as well, it relates to loads of different parts of life. And I think as non-white people, you also have to think that this is actually the way that you change things. So every time you're stopped and searched or whatever injustice is done to you from the police, taken to court. And as these settlements start to come through in dribs and drabs, it will equal millions, and they will start to say, we can't afford this. Let's make changes. It has to change. We have to change. And it's not until we do stuff like that, you have to play their game, that we're going to make change. And until we hit them in the pockets, it's always going to be the same.
Yeah, Get them where it hurts. And I 100% agree that, because again, I've done my own research, and people of color are at a disadvantage from in every aspect of life, literally every aspect of life, from the womb. We're at a disadvantage from the womb. So what, how does that start? We don't even start on the same starting line as everybody else. I mean, I know it's not the same, but it's just, I do genuinely believe those small battles we should be fighting, and the big ones, but the small ones too. Like my little brother, for example, he loves fishing. He absolutely loves fishing, and he's been fishing for years. He had his lakes that he goes to, that he's a member to, and one day, they'd moved all the big fish, into a different lake, and he'd asked the whoever the security, whoever they are, asked them why, and anyway had a debate with them. But the security guy tried to lie about something, but he'd forgotten about a conversation he'd already had with my brother the week before. So when my brother repeated back to him what he told him the week before, he didn't like it, because it basically showed him up. It showed him up for lying, and it showed my brother to be right, basically. So my brother basically told him to go away. Those were his words: "Go away." So the man went and told him he's going to get him banned. Going to get him banned from the lake, and he did. He got him banned from the lake, so now my brother can't go fishing. He's been fishing there for years, no problems whatsoever, but now he's banned. So my argument is, you need to fight that. You need to appeal that. He's like, no, I'll just go to another lake. I'm like, no, even if you go to another lake, even if you don't ever go back to that lake ever again, you need to fight that. Even if it's not for you, it's for the next person that comes after you. I said, because it's these small fights that we need to fight, to show people that they can't just treat us like anything, and that we are educated and we are able to fight back as well. Because that's another thing. People don't expect us to fight back. They expect us to just take it. So no, fight back if you can fight back. I know it's difficult, especially in situations like this, because it takes nearly every ounce of everything from you just to get out of bed in the morning. So to be able to fight in situations like this, I take my hat off to you and thank you. Because this is the thing, we know when we fight these types of fights, it's not going to help Dante, but anybody that comes after him, it can.
Yeah, exactly. And having a conversation with a friend, was talking about just stuff in general, and talk about like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and yeah, Rosa Parks and people like that. They sacrificed to get us to a point, and in some respects, it feels like we've just become complacent.
Mm.
They fought to further us. Yeah, they fought to get us just equality, and we're not. I don't think we're there yet, but we're further than they were.
Mm.
But their sacrifice, we need to pick that up, and we need to carry that on, and we need to keep on progressing, rather than just being comfortable with almost being the same, or thinking that we're the same and we're treated the same and we're equal. And if we don't stand up for ourselves, no one else is. You can't leave it to the next person. And a lot of Americans, when you speak to Americans and they say, "Oh, yeah, well, Obama didn't really do anything for us," it's like, why does he need to do something for you? Why does he, just because he's got into a position where he can help people or help a country, which is lots of people, it's not just black people, it's lots of people. Why do you have to ride on his back? Why can't you just try and do stuff for yourself? You
Yeah.
shouldn't rely on him to change your life. You should change your life yourself. And you should be trying to be the next Obama, or not Obama, but the next, in whatever profession you are, the next person who breaks through. Why are you waiting for other people to do it?
Mm.
Do it yourself.
Yeah.
That's why picking up this battle is important, because you can't just leave it to the next person, because everyone's going to leave it to the next person.
Yeah. Yeah. And they will definitely think twice now, just because, or even just for your asking for an autopsy, but you've taken all those extra additional steps that you've taken. It's going to make them have to take additional steps as well. So yeah, no, honestly, thank you, because I know it's not easy. And if people don't understand, there's a lot. It's a financial burden as well, which these people are very aware of as well. So they hope that you can't afford it, or you give up in the end because you can't afford it. And that's a lot of it. Is, solicitors most of the time aren't really interested in you as an individual and your case. It's whether they can make money out of you or not.
Yeah.
And if they can't, then they'll tell you you haven't got a case. When actually, I always think, follow your gut. I studied criminology and law. Thank God for me, I have, because I was told so many times, "Oh, yeah, oh, we haven't got a case. We won't take your case." And like, my instincts, my gut just kept telling me something's not right. Something's not right. I'm going to keep on pushing, and I have kept on pushing. But that's if I wasn't educated, I wouldn't have the skills to be able to do that. I've had to be the solicitor basically, and I've had to do the job as a solicitor and go through and do the research and look at the laws, and I've requested my medical notes and things and gone through things. Like I've had to be that person to do it. I don't have anyone to do it for me, so it can be really hard. It can be really hard. So if anybody is out there and they're battling right now, we see you and we hear you and we thank you, because it isn't easy, and it may not benefit you directly, but it will benefit somebody. So thank you. I always say, what is it? We can't help everybody, but everybody can help somebody.
Definitely.
Yeah. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you as well for doing the same. And in the case that we've got at the moment, we've had to get an expert witness to give their report on what would happen, and it's reverted back to the same kind of like, because they all kind of talk to each other, so doctors and stuff, they have their conventions that they go to. They obviously don't want to rob people up in the wrong ways. Probably do private work with other doctors, so they don't want to put other
Yeah.
doctors in it. So the expert witness came back and kind of just said the same thing. If it was done again, we can't guarantee there'll be a different outcome. And then that was based on just looking at the reports that he had been given from the hospital, and that solicitor had from the hospital. And then we put together our witness statements, sent that over, and I also sent over the report that we were given, which highlighted those 8 points. And then also the recording of my conversation with the doctor, and some of the points that he made, or some of the suggestions that he made in his expert witness review. I kind of picked holes in them and said, answer these. And went back, and the solicitor said, okay, we're going to send all this back over to him, and then he'll need to review it and then come back to you. So I think, yeah, you like you did, and like you said, sometimes you have to become, like, you have to start thinking like them, and you have to go a little bit further. And it's not that you can just appoint a lawyer and a solicitor and hope that they'll do all the work for you. Sometimes you're going to have to do it, because then they're just interested in, can I win or can't we win? And if
Yeah.
we can't win, then let's just put this case down. And you have to say, no, it's worth fighting, keep fighting.
Yeah. And even just picking up from what you said as well, the recordings, making the recording, even having an initiative to do that in the first place, like not everyone has that. So if people are listening again, record conversations. If you've got meetings, if you're on the phone, record it. Because for one, you can ask their permission. In theory, they shouldn't say no. They will try and say no, because I had meetings with the hospital and they tried to say no too, but they can't really, because what is their justification? If they say no, ask them why. Ask them to justify why, and they won't be able to. So then they will say yes. So, but record that, because for one, we are not going to remember everything word for word, and they can easily change their words and twist their words and say they didn't say this or they did say that. But also, you have to remember, if you're in this situation, you're going through trauma, because this is traumatic, and our brains don't work in the way that they normally work when you're going through trauma. So you're not going to digest all that information properly, and you're not going to remember everything properly. So record it so you can go back to it, and your perception is always changing. So what you thought at the beginning when you first had that conversation, if you re-listen to that 2 months later, you might have a whole different perception when you listen to that. So it really is a really good tip to record things, and then it's evidence as well. And I mean, for me, I remember I've had like 3-hour meetings and things like that, and I've recorded the whole lot. So because I'm with the ombudsman now, because like I said, no solicitors will take my case. But what I do is I'll go through it, and I'll listen to it, and I'll make notes of the important bits. So I'll document it. It was at, I don't know, 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I'll tell the ombudsman exactly where to listen to, because I know as a human being they're not going to sit there and listen to whole 3 hours and take everything in and listen to it properly. So I make everything as easy as possible for them. I've gone through policy and procedures, and I will just highlight the bits that I want them to look at, so they don't have to read the whole thing. if you can, try and make things as easy as possible and convenient as possible for these people that are dealing with your case. Even if there's when you think they're supposed to be on your side, like we just said, it is about money, it is about time, and they're human beings. We all look for shortcuts, unfortunately. That's how our brain works. So try and make things as easy as possible for them. Tell them what page of the document you want them to look at. At what minute of the hour they said this or they said that. Just so it makes it a little bit easier for them to fight your case.
Definitely. And yeah, like you said, that they've probably got loads of cases on. They've probably taken loads of cases, and for them it's like skim reading. It's almost like what recruiters do when they're looking at CVs. It's just, I'm just going to quickly skim through this document, and if it does, and nothing jumps out at me, then yeah, there's nothing there for me to really take in, and that's possibly what they can do, unless you say, no, look at page 5, line 12. That's where the
Yeah.
point is.
Yeah. And also, they're not experts. So they don't always know what they're looking for. We're not experts, but you soon become an expert, don't you? Because you end up researching and looking into so much stuff. You end up knowing more than half of the doctors or the nurses in the end. So you can tell them. Be
Yeah.
confident.
And I think like a lot of the things that when we tell this story, people then start saying to us, "Oh, you do know this." So, like with Gina being asked to give a urine sample, pretty much every single woman who's had a baby says it's impossible to wee. Like when you're about to give birth, it's impossible to wee. That like you just can't do it. And other people as well who said that, like in your condition, what was happening to you? Yeah, it would have been impossible for you to wee. There's no way you could have weed. So just like small symptoms like that, and that just opens up a whole nother thing about the NHS and how it's not digitalized and how we're not learning from our mistakes. Because if so many women are telling us this, why didn't any of the doctors and nurses or the reception person know this? That actually, if she's not able to weed, then there's probably really something wrong with her, and we should get her seen to sooner. It's like that's just if this was run by computers, that's what the computer would have done. It would have taken in the information and said, red flag,
Yeah.
she hasn't been able to pee. 20,000 other women who haven't been able to pee had serious problems with their births. Get her seen now. But as human beings, there's loads of cracks and that we're just sleeping through, and the information is not being transferred properly.
Yeah. I mean, from when she went to the toilet and her waters broke, she'd never been waiting there that long. That was clear for anybody. That would be clear to a toddler that was an emergency.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Nobody needed any medical. You didn't need any AI. You didn't need any medical background or anything. That's an emergency. And why on earth did it take for the receptionist to have to come and see herself before? I mean, when I'm listening. Where was you? Was you in A&E?
No, so we were in I think it was the maternity ward.
So you was in maternity and you still had to wait that long for anyone to come?
Yeah. And then like, so I've only told it from kind of like my side. So from Gina's side, when talking to her as well, she felt like embarrassed and degraded because she was just told to pull up her trousers and walk. So while she was walking, and because it was had to go out of the toilet and then through the waiting room and then round the corner, into the ward, she was just leaving a trail of blood. And there was obviously the blood in the toilet, and people could see who was sitting outside. So there was like husbands and wives who were sitting outside, mothers and daughters who were sitting outside, and she had to walk past all of them.
The fact that she had to walk, Peter.
Yeah.
Where was the wheelchair? That's what I'm thinking. How are they telling her to pull up her trousers and come and follow me? What the hell? She said, "Come on, sit down. I'm going to get your wheelchair." Like, she's never been told to walk, full stop.
Yeah.
Did they even check the toilet to see if your son was in the toilet? Did they even know if he was in there or not? Like, how?
I don't even think they did. It was just me that had a look and said, I don't think anything's in there. And yeah, you're right. And that's like one of my points as well, is like if you were swimming and there was a rope in the swimming pool with you, if like someone picked that swimming pool up and started shaking it around, because that's the same as her having to lift up her trousers and then walk around, there's a possibility that that rope's going to get around your neck at some point.
Yeah.
And that could have caused him to pass away. So yeah, there's loads of stuff that in our journey and our story that you just think if that was done better, if that had changed, and it's through no fault of our own, then there's a percentage chance, a higher percentage chance that he'd still be here.
It's that's the really hard. It's I don't know how you manage that because I have to separate that. It's like two separate things completely for me. I have the case which I have to fight, and it triggers me so much. Every time I see an email from somebody, I'm triggered. But then there's my son, which I have to think of completely separately because otherwise I don't know how I'd manage that.
Mm. Yeah, I think it is all just mixed up together. I don't think I have managed to separate it, and I think it just makes me angry
Mm.
every time I think about it and talk about it, and it just makes you angry that nothing's being done. That it just feels like there's a lot of lip service. And interestingly, you mentioned the ombudsman. That was one of the things someone else mentioned to us. Said you need to get in touch with the ombudsman. And they also mentioned your local MP. So I wrote to our local MP, explained what happened, and they said that like they're really sorry to hear what happened. And what's interesting, because it was raised as a major incident, it feels like a lot of people know about it. So I think our MP actually had heard about it, and other doctors. So there was the private clinic that we went to. So after it all happened, we went to another private clinic to just get Gina checked out again to make sure everything was okay. And the person that we saw there actually worked in the hospital. So obviously, private people do their
Mm.
clinics
Yeah.
privately and also work in hospital. And she was a very senior person at the hospital, so she had already heard of the whole case. So she basically knew who Gina was from the time that she saw her name because it had been discussed. It is being discussed at the hospital as one of their major failings. Yet they're saying that they couldn't have done anything and they want to change. And our MP, when like we had an exchange with her, our local MP, she was saying basically, I can't get involved. So this was before the election. So she's a Tory MP, and she said that Tory rules are that any inter-party like topics that are happening, they can't get involved in. So even though I mentioned to her that I think there's like a petition that's being made, and it's a kind of other parties are getting together to push this petition forward and talk about this in Parliament. She said, unfortunately, I can't get involved. It's just party policy that we can't work with other parties. I was like, that's ridiculous. During
Um,
COVID, you all came together to
yeah.
try and save lives. This isn't any different. This is trying to save lives. Like that's just ridiculous.
Even just that, they just haven't as a policy, regardless of what we're talking about. You're an MP. You want to help this country, no? And what better way to do that is by working together. But yet your policy says you can't do that. That's so bizarre. Literally.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not about working together, is it? This is the thing. I'm getting angry, to be honest with you. It
And
really frustrates me.
I think that again, I kind of went into that more calm mode. Uh, Sometimes you have to use the allies that you've got, even if they feel like enemies.
Mm.
So, although she said that it was, there's other things that we wanted to do. So, there's a park in Haringey, where they've got a baby lost tree, and you can go there and you can hang up, like memorabilia, that you want to just kind of, remember your baby by, and you put
Mm.
it on the tree and everyone else can see it as well, so they can tell people to go and visit it and they can see what you've put up. And we went and saw that, and then I thought we had to trek all the way to Haringey. Like, why isn't there one of these trees everywhere
Yeah.
so that everyone who has suffers baby loss can just go to their local park and leave something? Like, it doesn't have to be every single local park, but just a park where the council can dedicate a space that they can kind of make sure it's clean all the time, make sure that it's looked after, well maintained, make sure it's in a place that's not going to be disturbed, and just allow parents to kind of leave stuff there if they need to. So using my local MP, so that was like a avenue in. Even though she couldn't help us with the campaign, she could
Mm.
help us. So she's helping us trying to get a tree in our area. So
Okay.
recently she sent over 6 different locations that the council has suggested and asked us which one we would suggest to go with it, and then also put that out on social media just to get the neighborhoods input on it. So there's ways that you can use. Sometimes you can use those people that feel like at that point in time feel like they're your enemy. Sometimes you can use them for your
Yeah, wow.
benefit.
She kind of owes you a little bit. And also Facebook. I've learned. I don't really use it personally, but from the Nottingham, it's Nottingham, yeah, the Nottingham inquiry. That's how that came about through Facebook. It was two parents lost their daughter, um, and they were both senior consultants at the hospital. This is how bad it is. This is what I mean. So people like us, like really, there's really no hope for us because these are two white people, senior consultants. I think one was a doctor and one was a physiotherapist. I can't remember all the details of what happened, but I think their daughter was stillborn, and I think she was trying to go to hospital. I think for a week. I think she might have been in labour for a week and kept trying to go to hospital, yeah, and kept getting sent home, until I think part of her baby was actually hanging out of her. That's when they finally took her seriously. Like I said, these people worked at the hospital, and there was a cover up there. But because they worked there, they obviously had a bit of an inside, but they were still hidden from them and covered up from them. They knew something wasn't right, but no one was ever admitting anything, and it was all covered up. And they even missed, because you've got, I don't know if you know this, the 3-year rule that if you wanted to do criminal proceedings against the hospital, you've got 3 years to do it. So they missed that. They didn't know about that. They missed that. So what they did was they started going on Facebook and asking other people, other parents, if they'd ever suffered any loss or anything like that at this hospital. Anyway, long story short, it ended up being hundreds of families that were let down by this hospital. So that's how they end up having their public inquiry, because there were so many people. And then off the back of that, I think that was where the family was awarded around £100,000 or something like that. It was a lot of money anyway. A young family that had lost their child. So Facebook is actually a really good tool as well. I've learned, even just like I say, just to find out about other people. It's because we don't talk, and this is another thing. This is again why it's so important that we're having these conversations, because baby loss is such a taboo subject. We all deal with it in isolation. We don't talk about it. We don't always tell anybody. I mean, I'm even just listening to you. You said you'd waited until the last minute before you told people because of you experienced before. So and then you only are, when things like this happen, you only really want to tell those that are closest to you what's happened, don't you? You don't want to talk about it to anybody else. And because you feel like sometimes you have to tell them because they're going to ask you, they will expect a baby. You have to tell them. But we don't have these conversations. So you could have multiple friends, for example, that had suffered baby loss, and you'd never know nothing about it. I mean, you probably would now if they know about you. So they may come to you and tell you. But up until that point, you probably wouldn't have. We don't talk about it with each other. So we don't actually know how many people or how many babies are actually dying because we don't talk about it.
And I think the thing that kind of made me talk about it more is like my workplace at that time, like amazing. And I think a lot of the time, you might say the workplace, I think the workplace gave the HR team the ability to be amazing. And this one HR person who was looking after me, she was just like the best. Probably in her role, she was saying to the business, this is how we should respond to this, and this is how we should, and this is what we should do. And she, after my manager spoke to me, he said that Serena will be in touch with you. And she got in touch, and she kind of left it to me. So she was like, I'm here if you need to talk to me. Also, don't feel like you have to talk to me. She's from the first conversation, she said, we're paying you. You don't need to think about when you're coming back. When you're ready, you tell me when you want to come back. Just know that we're paying you until you're ready. So you don't have to worry about that. And that was like a massive weight off my mind, because a lot of people probably are thinking, I need to get back to work as soon as possible, otherwise I'm going to lose loads of money. But for me, that was just like, go and sort out everything. You need to sort out a funeral, go and do it. Know that the money's going to be there because we're still paying you. And it's like just her approach to everything. I spoke to her about how my wife at the time was working for a small company, small charity, that was kind of not fully functional. So they didn't really have an HR department, didn't really have anyone that she could lean on. So she didn't get any support. For me, my company offered me, or it comes as part of your package, but some what's therapy sessions.
Yeah.
And I said and they said, "How's your wife?" And I said, "She hasn't, like, her company can't do that or anything like that." And explained to them like how she was at the moment and stuff. And Serena said to me, "Look, I'm sure we can sort something out." And they sorted out some sessions for her as well. They paid for her. Like, the company was amazing. When I went back, I think only my manager had told only a small amount of people who I directly kind of worked with, so other product managers. And one of them had had a kind of a traumatic birth with his son. And he was a white gentleman, and he said, "I hope you don't mind, but I kind of know what happened. And I really recommend you get in touch with Sans." And he said, I spoke to Sans, and also I recommend that you take the therapy, like the sessions, because the counseling sessions, because they really help. I know you might think of it at the moment as you don't want to talk to anyone, but take it. It really helps. And I took them, and it kind of helped. I'm not going to say that it was like a magic thing. I think for some people it does work a lot. For me, and I was trying to explain it to someone the other day. For me, I always enjoy just being on my own and thinking with my own thoughts.
Mm.
And I think sometimes therapy feels a little bit like that because the other person's not talking much. They're
Yeah.
just probing you to get you to think deeper. And I like doing that anyway. So for me, I ended up talking to myself a lot and in these sessions, and they were just there to kind of nod, listen, maybe prod sometimes. And how do you think this makes other people feel? And how do you think this makes that person feel? And blah, blah, blah. So for me, they weren't like amazing, groundbreaking, game changing, but they provided those, I think it was like 45-minute sessions. And I think I had something like 10. So they provided that space for 45 minutes. There was a space for me to just stop, think, try and make sense of everything that had gone on. So
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want, because I'm intrigued from a male's perspective. Did you feel like you had much of that space in your general day to day?
that's what I was about to say. I think when you're trying to when you're trying to deal with grief, sometimes you kind of find ways to distract yourself, and you'll just keep on going, and you'll keep on going, and because you keep on going, you don't have the time to stop and think, and because you don't stop and think, you never deal with the trauma. You just take the trauma on with you until there's a point where you do have time to stop and think. For some reason, something happens, you have time to stop and think, and then it's like a meltdown because you try to run away from this thing that's been following you, and it's caught up with you now. And when you stop and you block out 45 minutes each time, it's like tackling it, and it gets smaller and smaller as you go along. So you're still carrying it, but it gets easier to deal with because you've spoken about that, you've dealt with that. And then when you get to a point where there is time for you on your own to think about stuff, you've already thought about a lot of it. So you've already processed a lot of it. There's just the unanswered questions that you've got now. And then you go through more therapy to get into a place where you're kind of not over the trauma, because you'll never ever be over it, but you're at a place where you can deal with it and you can manage it.
Yeah.
Or you just try to yourself, like I've done. It's like you still take those little moments out to just say to yourself, what's going on? How can you tackle this? I think, like, product manager hat on, it's kind of just thinking, what's the problem? What are we trying to solve? And what's everything that's going on around that? How can you help make the problem go away?
That's really good advice. Really good advice, and especially for a man to say that as well. So any men that are listening, please, please, please take that on board. And it does help to give you that space. And everyone manage things differently. I love yoga. Yoga saved my life. And I've tried all sorts of therapies, but none of them helped me like yoga did. So, you know, but give yourself that space, whatever it is that you do in that space, whether it's listen to music, whether it's write poetry, whether it's, to go for walks or go and exercise, go and play football. Just give yourself that space for you.
something that you mentioned earlier as well about hospitals, and I was thinking back about the couple who won. And my mum was a nurse when I was younger. I was younger playing football. Tore my cartilage in my knee, playing football at school, and my friend's mum dropped me home. My dad was just more annoyed that I'd inconvenienced typical West Indian dad. He was annoyed that I'd inconvenienced my friend's mum in making her drop me home. So he didn't care about my knee at all. My mum came home from work. She took one look at my knee and she saw that it was like massive. It was like a balloon. And she said, like, tomorrow morning, I'm going to take you to work. So she took me to work in the morning with her. Um, one of the she went left me in the car, went and got someone who had a wheelchair. So one of the porters came out, put me in the wheelchair, wheeled me round to the doctor. The doctor saw me and said, like, we could do keyhole surgery and see what's going on in the knee. But what I suggest for now is just put ice on it, and you can do some rehabilitation sessions later. Um, and that only happens, and I think this is like, without trying to beat up the NHS, this is like a difference in generations. So that only happened because my mum made friends in the hospital, and healthcare workers of a certain generation cared about the hospital and their jobs and how well they looked after patients. They saw patients as patients, people who were hurting. So she had a connection to everyone else who was in the hospital, and they had a connection to her. And what it sounds like in that case that you spoke about is these two people worked in this hospital, yet they were invisible. No one knew that they were. If people knew who they were, that they worked at the hospital, and still ignored them, that means that culture's so broken within the hospital that you can't repair it. You need to just smash it down and build it again.
Honestly, I think that is the case because I just think they didn't think the hospital was so big, and this was maternity, and so they didn't really know that many people in maternity, because I think one was a physiotherapist and one was a doctor, but I don't know what area that he was in. But they definitely knew them, like I say, and it was they knew people were hiding things from them as well. That people were literally whispering. It's on, I think it's on ITV. There's documentary on
I
ITV.
have to look at that.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
need to
because
watch
so
it.
my mum was a dermatology nurse, so it's like skin. She was like a dermatology specialist. She was just skin, but still, she would know other nurses who knew a doctor, and the doctor would help. She knew the porter, or she knew of the porter, and the porter's, oh, what do you mean your son's outside? What's out his knee? Okay, let me go and grab him, and I'll take him around to the doctor. And like, I got special treatment because she had made so many friends, or she knew people who could get me seen quicker because she
And
could use
yeah,
that network. Whereas it sounds like these people, like the hospitals nowadays, every patient is just a customer. Well, not even a customer, you're a problem that needs to be gotten rid of as soon as possible. And it doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter if you work at the hospital, because somebody along the way must have known that these people worked at the hospital that they came in contact with. Doesn't matter if you're in maternity, with another nurse that might speak to another nurse and, oh, did you know that that's the head of whoever or whatever? Like, it's just broken down to a point where the communication and the whole culture of the NHS is broken down to a point where it doesn't matter if you even work in the NHS, you're going to get rubbish treatment.
yeah. Yeah, basically, I think that hospital was that bad. I'll send you the link for it because I think the hospital was that bad. Yeah, that was basically what the case was. That's how they managed to get the public inquiry because there were so many people they'd let down. So many, they were just that badly run. I don't know if it was that badly understaffed or what. But I mean, I don't know if you've ever taken the time to look at the hospital's ratings, like my local hospital, for example. I mean, I've only gone back, what, 12 years, and it's not got higher than requires an improvement. It's either inadequate or requires an improvement. It's not got higher than that. And I'm like, that's over 10 years that it's been like this. Why are you not doing anything about it? It's only now this year because I regularly check that it's that they're actually like questioning the hospitals now, doing extra inspections. I'm like telling them that they need to fix up a little bit. But I'm just like, and again, I think that's probably down to lots of complaints, and because I'm one of them, I've highlighted that myself. Like, again, that's another thing I send to the ombudsman. And so you don't need to check, I've checked for you. This is what they're rated. So yeah, it's just scary. It really is scary. This is why sometimes, this is why, well, I always believe knowledge is power, and we should always have a little understanding about a little bit of everything if we can. So we know, we can get an idea if people are doing things right or wrong, and actually be able to have a voice for ourselves. Because otherwise, we just put our trust in these people, and we don't know. We have no idea if they're doing what's right or what's wrong. And then when they do wrong, so even with this, I think what the problem is that there may still be a culture of, we'll look after our own or whatever else, but the fear of being caught out for doing wrong is bigger than that. So they will throw their staff under the bus all day long to protect the overall hospital and their image and reputation. Because for some reason the NHS just can't admit any proper fault. But like you said, why not? That's how we learn.
Yeah. I think in the book that I mentioned, that's the key kind of learning of the or not the NHS, healthcare services in general across the world, is that they don't want to admit blame. For some reason, they just don't want to admit blame. And that's what's holding us back from getting good healthcare, is because they don't want to say that they were wrong, and they don't want to learn from their mistakes.
But it is all about the money. So even, if you look at when they brought out the vaccination for the COVID vaccination, there's always straight away, like every other vaccination, that there's a clause that if people are affected adversely by this, they can only sue the NHS for a certain amount of money. There's a cap. I think it's like £150,000 or something, but there's a cap. There's an actual legal document that has a cap that says the amount that they can be sued for if they get it wrong. Like, why is that even a thing that's even thought of at the beginning anyway? Like, what the hell? But yeah, that is the culture.
I think there's even one of the vaccinations where it said that you can't sue, even if you get side effects, you can't sue. You're taking this injection to help you with this thing, and it was so early on that there was no way that people could know whether it was going to have long-term lasting effects or not.
I can understand why they feel the need to protect themselves to a degree because of the work they're working. And there's never a guarantee, is there, with everything. There's always risks. But at the same time, if you've done something that you know is completely wrong and has had an impact, whether it is the cause of death or not, or whatever, it's had an impact, you should admit fault so you can do better. It's not about the blame game. It's about learning, isn't it, from your mistakes and doing better next time. We do what we can until we know better, then we do better.
Yeah. And I think like in development, product management, and like the whole tech space, that's one of the things that you always say is like no blame culture. So when something goes wrong and you get something wrong, you might have a little get together and talk about what went wrong. But you don't look to say this person did it wrong. You look to say because if that person did it wrong, the rest of the team were there still. So you could have seen that they were going wrong and you could have said something, or you could have helped make sure that they didn't go wrong. How can we put stuff in place where that one person isn't at fault? Because we've made sure that there's safeguards that they can't get it wrong, or no one can get it wrong if someone else came and replaced them. So you always look at a no blame culture of trying to build a team where everybody is responsible, and if one person fails, it's the whole team is failing. Let's not just point the finger. Let's work out how as a team we can change that. And that's what the NHS basically needs to do. But it's still that we don't want to blame one person, or if we do have to throw someone on a bus, we will blame one person.
Yeah.
But basically, it's not us. It was you. It's your fault.
Yeah. It's not the NHS. We can never make any mistakes. It's that one doctor that didn't have enough sleep and hadn't had their meds that day. That's why they made a mistake. But as the NHS, we didn't do it. It wasn't us. No, yeah, it is. And it's just, I mean, I work with kids and I always tell the kids, there's no such thing as mistakes, only lessons learned. As long as you learn from those lessons, because if you don't learn, then it is a mistake, you know? Yeah. So, but I think us doing what we're doing, having these conversations, fighting these battles that we're doing for our children, we are changing slowly. We might not always get to feel the benefits of it, but we are making changes. We're making people stand up at least, they're having to stand up and make sure that they're held accountable for what they're doing, at least, to think about that. So yeah, it's a long battle, but thank you for joining the fight, and also as well because it's so soon as well after your loss to be having to battle. They have to take these battles on. But the thing is, the way they do it, they're clever. They make us have to do it straight away when we're at our weakest. Um, but so I know how much strength it takes. So honestly, thank you, and we appreciate you. And if there's anything that if I can do to help or anything like that, then I would be more than help. I'll be more than happy to do that.
Thank you. And yeah, just some advice for other people as well who might have to go, well, hopefully never have to go through this, but if you ever find yourself in a situation where you do have to go through this, so we talked about the money side of it and how much it costs to take someone to court and stuff like that. Luckily, we had in one of our house insurance policies, it included legal cover. So that legal cover has been used and we're utilizing it. So always look at stuff like that, stuff that you don't think is relevant. So I think when we took out the policy and it said you get, I think it's like £20,000 legal cover, if you need it, and buildings and insurance and blah blah blah. I think, well, I only need buildings insurance and content. That's all I need. What have I got this legal cover thing for? And you're tempted to say, well, can you just remove it? And I think sometimes it comes in handy. So if you ever find yourself in these positions, don't feel like there's no possible way. There probably is a way, and just look at stuff like that. Any insurance you've ever taken out, look for those documents. Are you covered for legal? Maybe that could help you out. There's always a way to keep that fight going.
It's true, actually. It is. Well, we've had to tap into ours from our house insurance as well, which again, it would never have occurred to me before. And work, and lots of people's work as well offers you legal advice anyway. So to get that, and there are firms out there that do no win, no fee, but just be a little bit cautious of those ones because they want a guaranteed win.
Yeah.
So they will tell you don't have a case when you might have a bit of a case, but it means it might be a bit of a fight for them, a bit of hard work. So they might be reluctant to take those.
Yeah. I think we found out that from a lot of them that yeah, you probably got a case, but it's the NHS, and what we can win is probably not worth that risk. So we're going to say no. Is
Yeah.
what we basically found for most people.
Yeah, which is really what you don't want, do you, when you've just lost a baby? There was I did know of a firm actually. Leeds, I've got the book here actually. Let me have a look. I went to a conference in March and I spoke with these law firm actually. They were really good. Lee Day. There they are, free advertising for you. Um, they are. I'm actually going to interview them and have them on the podcast actually, so they can give people some advice around like the guidelines and the rules and things like that. But they were. I've seen them sponsor quite a few different organizations as well. But when I spoke to them, they sounded really good and really passionate about what they did as well. And they do take on. They seem like they take on anyway. I can't vouch for them 'cause I've never used them, but they seem like they take on the cases that other people are a bit more reluctant to take.
Yeah, and like I'm trying to remember the name of our one. I don't want to get it wrong, so I won't say it. I'm going to try and Google it quickly. But also wanted to just say that so my wife and a few other mothers who started speaking to each other have set up a charity called Ebony Bonds, and it's to support Black parents and from their angle, predominantly Black mothers who have gone through baby loss and need that space to talk because, like you mentioned earlier, as a community, sometimes we don't talk enough. And we end up kind of shying away from talking through things that are really important. And it's not until something happens to you and then your aunt and maybe your sister or your grandma or your mother tells you, oh yeah, I also lost a baby, that you realize that other people have been through it who are very close to you but just never spoken about it. And then you start speaking about it and it's like, well, actually, let's talk more. And so they're out there. You can find them on Instagram, Ebony Bonds. I'm also part of Ebony Bonds, mainly because my wife dragged me into it, but also because I've been seen as a Black man who's willing to open up and willing to talk about this, and willing to show my vulnerability. And hopefully other Black men feel like they can also talk. And there was a play called Ellipsis that we went and did a panel talk afterwards around baby loss, and I was on the panel and speaking to people. And afterwards, there was a lady who came up to me and said that her friend, who's a man, was in the audience, and she said, "Thank you for what you said, because what you said, he really needed to hear." Um, and she said, you never know when somebody is going to be listening to something that you say that changes their life. And she said, I think that happened today. So thank you.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was amazing to just like feel like I could
Mm.
have helped someone. And in that talk, I was also talking about black men, and it's like a universal thing. And it probably comes from sometimes you find yourself in situations where you are the only black male around,
Mm.
and then you spot another black male and you give
I
them
know
the
what you're
nod.
gonna say. Yeah, I did. That black nod. Me and my friend were just talking about it yesterday.
So you give them the nod, and it just means I see you, I
Yeah.
know you, I know what you're probably thinking, I know what you've been through as well. I know everything. In just a nod, it just says that.
Mm.
And I was saying in this talk that we know how to physically connect when we see another black person. So we know the trauma that we've both been through. We know the generational trauma that has come before us, and that nod kind of says, "I know," but the nod's not enough. So we need to start talking to each other, and if that means showing your vulnerability and talking about baby loss, so be it. We need to do that. We need to come together. We need to not just hear me say something, but you need to come and let's sit down and you talk as well. And I'll just listen, or I'll talk and you can just listen, or we can sit there in silence. Let's just come together a bit more as black men and not just nod at each other in passing, but actually sit down and talk to each other. So same as like the women are saying that let's talk about, let's break down that stigmatism that we have around baby loss. As black ladies, we don't talk about it. Let's start talking. Same thing for men. We need to start talking as well.
Yeah, honestly, I applaud you. I'm actually going to applaud you and your wife. I will put all of your details for Ebony Bonds on the bottom of this, on the details for the podcast. So if anybody wants to find you and look you up, they'll have the details there. But I think it's amazing what you guys are doing, and it is needed. It really is needed. The more of us that do it, the better. But to have that and create that space, and you don't see that many men that are open and talking about it and making themselves vulnerable. But actually, I think that's to show strength to be able to be vulnerable. You have to be strong to be able to do that, I think, because it's not an easy task to show your vulnerability. It's actually easier to hide it than it is to show it. So actually that takes a lot of strength. And then yeah, thank you, because it does need to be done. And we do need to talk more. I mean, how many men between a certain age, the suicide rate, for example, are ridiculously high. And they shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be. And I do genuinely think that if we talked a bit more, that would come down. It really would. We carry such trauma and weight around with us, and we don't release that. And especially for men, it's hard enough for black women and women of color, I think, especially to talk about baby loss in particular. Um, but it's even 10 times harder for men, I think, because you're just expected to carry on and look after the family, look after your wife. I bet everyone that's what they expected from you. Every now and then you might get the odd person ask how you were, but I can almost guarantee most of them ask, "How's Gina? How's she doing? Is she okay?" Not how you are. And it happened to you too, your son as well. So it is, I do see that it can be a lot harder for men. It's different. And I do acknowledge that the experiences are different because women have the physical side of it to it as well, and men don't have that. But I don't have to deal. 4 years later, I'm not dealing with the physical side of things now. I'm dealing with the emotional side of things, and this is what you were dealing with the whole time. So that's what sits with us the longest, and that's probably what sits with us the heaviest.
Mm.
So it is important. So you are really doing some really good work. So I will put all of your details up so people can get in contact with you. If they want to reach out and get involved and talk, they'll have your details.
Great, thanks. And I'm setting up a group. So I thought to myself, actually, that's quite a good name. So the nod is not enough. And I thought, actually, that's like an acronym as well. So it's nine. So I'm setting up, I've set up a WhatsApp group. I'm going to call it nine. And just anybody, any males who want to join, just have a safe space to have conversations, to ask for help, or to see where you can get help from. Just yeah, reach out to me and I'll add you to the group, and you can have that safe space to show your
That's
vulnerability.
amazing. And I like it because when you see you said nine, as a West Indian, I think 9-9.
True. I didn't think of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
the first thing I thought of when you said that. So it's very fitting. Ah, well done. You're doing some really good work. And thank you so much for agreeing to come and speak with us today as well.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Ah, it's been a pleasure.
And yeah, thanks everyone for who listened as well, who listens to this. And yeah, reach out. I think the worst thing about trauma is if you try and carry it or if you try and ignore it. Um, you need to, like you said, you need some outlets for it at some point. And if you can make those outlets as constructed as possible, it helps to manage it. So if, like you said, you did yoga or you just arrange to go and meet a friend and have a coffee and you know that in that time frame you're going to talk about it, or you get therapy, whatever you do, try and make it constructed so that there's like, there's a beginning and there's an end to it. And then you can carry on with your day or your week or whatever. But it's when it's unstructured and it just hits you and you end up breaking down because you weren't expecting to try and deal with your trauma at that point. That's when it can be really negative. So try and structure it as much as you can, but let it out.
That is really good advice, actually. Really, really good advice. Because one thing about trauma is it will eventually come out. It's inevitable, whether it's something you're choosing or if it comes out, ends up being an illness or something like IBS or migraines, or it will come out. It will manifest itself some way. So yeah, best to manage it. Just try and manage it yourself where you can. Okay, right. Well, thanks then, Peter.
Thank you.